Together we are whole. Together we are whole.
Thank you, Cindy. That was lovely. Lovely. Well, good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Awesome. I told Heather I'm glad that she moved this plant. Otherwise, you would not be able to see me. It would be a talking plant, but we love you and appreciate you, Heather. So the talk title for today is Seat of the Soul. So first off, I think it would be really helpful to kind of understand what exactly the soul is. We use this word a lot, especially in religious talk or in churches, the soul. But do we actually know what it is? Do we know where it is? So I've invited the words of some pretty amazing spiritual teachers to get us started, kind of help us on our way. Maybe shed some light and kind of give us some information. So we're going to take a page out of Ernest Holmes's playbook. So Ernest was known as this great synthesizer. So he took all these spiritual traditions and these religious traditions and studied them and analyzed them and just looked at the kind of the threads of truth that are present in all of these things. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. We're going to take some of these spiritual teachers, these thought leaders, and kind of see what they have to say about the soul. But first, I want to invite you to do something. Now, wherever you are, now if you're driving, please do not do this. But if you're not driving, I would invite you to close your eyes just for a moment. Because I think it's really important, especially when we're trying to dig a little deeper into some spiritual things. Sometimes it's good to take an inventory of where we are and kind of what our own intuition is first. So I invite you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just lean into your own wisdom. So what comes to mind, or what feeling arises when you think about this question? What is the soul? So I invite you to open your eyes again. And from that own kind of space that we've started in our own being, it's going to give us a really great foundation to explore other definitions of the soul. Everybody ready? We're going to get started. All right. So Deepak Chopra, most everyone knows Deepak Chopra, says that the soul is the core of your being. It is eternal. It doesn't exist in space or time. It is the field of infinite possibilities, infinite creativity. It is your internal reference point of which you should always be in touch. So according to Deepak, this soul can be understood as our inner voice, kind of what we explored a moment ago, our inner voice, that inner intuition, that inner guidance. So that's one definition of the soul, an inner voice. Eckhart Tolle says the soul is your innermost being, the presence that you are beyond form, the consciousness that you are beyond form. That is the soul. That is who you are at your essence. So we have inner voice, and then Eckhart shines a little bit deeper light as our essence. That true part of us, that innermost being that exists regardless of what is on the outside. Michael Singer, who is the author of The Untethered Soul, says, And I thought he'd be a really good person to research, since he did a lot of research on the soul and what that means in our everyday lives. Michael Singer says the soul is the indwelling consciousness that watches the mind come and go, that watches the heart come and go, watches the emotions of the heart, and watches the world pass before you. You, the consciousness, the center of being is soul. So according to Michael, the soul is that observer. And if you've been in spiritual communities or spiritual practices, we talk about this becoming the silent observer of our emotions, or the observer of our thoughts. And we do this by not being the person who's having the thought, but watching the person have the thought. So according to Michael, the soul is the observer. It's that part that can observe ourselves having thoughts. It's that part that can observe ourselves having emotions. Wayne Dyer says the soul is birthless, deathless, changeless part of us. The part of us that looks out from behind our eyes and has no form. The soul is infinite, so there is no in and there is no out of it. It is everywhere, and there is no place that it is not. So we have added to our definition that the soul is also infinite and changeless. It's that part of us that exists no matter what's on the outside. It's that home, that essence of us that does not change. Jean Houston, and I just love Jean Houston, and I love her definition of the soul. And so I kind of saved it for last because I really love it. And I watched a video of her actually talking about the soul and just how connected she was to this definition. It really made me want to include that in our conversation today. She says, I believe that the soul is the essence of who and what we are. I personally believe that it transcends our leaving this mortal coil. And I think it comes with codes and possibilities and the next layers of who and what we may be. It's often a pain in the neck because it says, wake up, it's time to wake up, don't go to sleep. And I think it's also the lure of our becoming. That's what I think the soul is. So according to Jean, the soul is the lure of our becoming, this roadmap of possibilities, not only who we are, but who we're becoming. All right, so to recap what we know so far, it's always good to do that so we can kind of know exactly where we've come and how far we have left to go. The soul is an inner voice. It is our essence. It is the observer. It is infinite and changeless, and it's the seat of possibilities. And Jean Houston's visual of this lure of our becoming gives great insight in what is possible when we live our life from this space, from this inside out, not the outside in. That there is something within us that knows exactly who we are, even when we forget. And it's always calling, always inviting us to step more fully into that space. Can you feel the energy that comes from that visualization, this lure, this pull to greater and greater understanding of our essence by choosing to focus on what's on the inside instead of the many things on the outside? We tap into this inner urge to grow and to evolve and to become who we already are. So what prevents us from living from this space? Because I don't know about you, but it's really challenging sometimes. It's really easy for me to sit up here and read what the soul is and this essence and living from the inside out, but it's a hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to do. So as I was thinking about this week, kind of what I wanted to talk about and kind of meditating, I had to quiet my own heart and mind and think about what are my own blocks that prevent me from living from this space. And I have a really sneaky suspicion that everyone else has these same blocks. I am not the only one. So I think we can all relate on a basic level to these blocks. So let me share with you what came up for me. Maybe an effort to kind of bring these blocks to light and be able to let them go and let them stop preventing us from living from our essence, living from our soul, living from that which we are, so that we can experience a life that's full of love and joy and peace. We all want that, right? I know I do, because that's who we are. All right, so here we go. Here are the blocks in no particular order. It's just the way it came up. Block number 1, that really prevents us from living from this space. Repetitive thoughts and worry. Now, I can't be the only one who has these. So how this works is, or how it works for me, and I'm sure this is how it works universally, is we perceive an external situation, and we begin to create a story about it, often one that is not based in truth or reality. Then we start ruminating on the thought or the worry until they pretty much consume everything. So all we're thinking about is this. It's kind of like an example of this. Say you text, say you've met a new person and you really like them. And you text them this, I really like you, I really enjoyed our time together, blah, blah, blah. You fill in the situation. And you receive no response. And this goes on for about an hour, and you're okay. Maybe they're doing something. But then it goes on for several hours, and now we've created a story. Now this person doesn't like me. Or I was so stupid to think this person likes me. So we're creating these stories. Come to find out next day that the person that you text had just dropped their phone in the toilet. And had spent all day trying to get a new one. But so instead, we wasted this whole day worrying, living from worry, living from rumination. And there was really no need. Now, how often does that happen? Now, not necessarily with the phone in the toilet, but that same sort of scenario where someone says something or someone looks at us and we create this whole story that was not even based in truth. It's the way our brains work, so we can let ourselves off the hook. But knowing that this is how our brains work, we become more and more aware. Because then that affects how we show up in the world. It affects how we show up throughout that day. It affects how we feel about ourselves, feel about others, how we interact with others. So when we're acting from the space of this rumination, we're really disconnected with this essence. Do you see how that happens? Rumination, essence. So we're not living what's based in truth. We're living what's based out here instead of what's in here. Block number 2, and some of these kind of mesh into each other, but block number 2 is need for external stuff or validation. Ooh, that's a tough one too. Whenever we look to anything outside of us, we automatically rob ourselves of the power that comes within from our own essence. When our worth and who we are and who we see ourselves to be is tied in something out here, we become chained energetically to this, to people, places, situations. It's kind of the I'll be happy when, or if this would happen, everything would be okay, or if this hadn't happened, then I would be happy. When our happiness is based outside of us, it's based on impermanence, which means things that change. And often these are things that we have no control over. So when we train our minds to no longer seek external validation as a source of our happiness, and believe me, it takes practice. And this is not to say that situations and people and things in our lives don't add to our happiness. They do. They're kind of like the whipped cream and cherry on top of this wonderful sundae. But they're not the sundae. So when we train our minds to no longer seek external validation as the source of our happiness, that we begin to really connect with this essence of who and what we are. So be gentle with yourselves. This is a tough thing. But know that we can live from the joy that's the core of our essence, a joy that does not change because it's based on our source, which is permanent. not on something outside of us, which is impermanent. This source, this foundation, this building block of who we are. I'd much rather build a house on that than the things that change. So we're on 3. Block number 3, I had to count there for a second. Thank you, Cindy. Feelings of separation or disconnectedness. Anytime that we feel separate from others, separate from our source, it really hinders our ability to be able to connect and live from that space. And this kind of feeds in to the previous blocks. And we seek to kind of fill this void, this disconnection with things outside of us. I'm feeling disconnected. I'm feeling separated, so I want to not feel that. So I'm going to fill my life with all these external things in order to kind of get rid of that. So connection is the key in allowing the reciprocal nature of the universe to flow. Connection with ourselves, connection with others, connection with Source. So we have to seek out ways that foster this sense of connection. And we can do this through spiritual practice or being in nature. Just think about the feeling when you see a beautiful sunset, or sunrise, sunset, either way. You have your coffee in hand and you step out on the porch and there it is, a beautiful sunrise. And that feeling of, that's the soul. That feeling, that connected feeling, that's the soul. So we have to seek out ways to do that. Things that shift our focus from these external things into this internal. Things that really feed our minds, our bodies, our souls, and turn our attention inward. To not be distracted by the things that are on the outside. Because once we understand who we are at our core, then there's no way we can feel disconnected. It doesn't matter what's on the outside. When we truly know who we are at our core, it is impossible to feel disconnected because the truth is that we are connected to everything and everyone, no matter the circumstance, no matter the situations that may be swirling. Block number 4, right, Cindy? 4. Okay, block number 4, feelings of lack, limitation, and fear. Now, this one can stop us in our tracks. I like to call this the what-if syndrome, and believe me, I've had some pretty bad cases of this. It can leave us feeling anxious or depressed or panicked or paralyzed, unable to tell which way is up. Once again, this is based on external, forgetting about the internal, which is the true source of our peace and where our abundance lies. How do we break this cycle? For me, I'm always, if I get into this cycle of, what if this happens, what if this happens, what if that happens, kind of, and it keeps on going. It gets bigger and bigger. It's like a snowball. I break the cycle by focusing on the present moment. What is happening right now? What am I feeling right now? And being grateful for that. Gratitude will shift feelings of lack, limitation, and fear like nobody's business. It is the ultimate attitude, mind, heart, soul adjuster. Because when we focus on gratitude, that's connecting, that's grounding us to the source of all that is joyful and peaceful in our lives. When we focus on that, we can't see anything else. So can you visualize how these blocks are like these things that swirl out here? Spinning, 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 but they're not in here. So when we feel these blocks, when we feel disconnected, when we feel this fear, when we feel lack, limitation, all the things, all these blocks in our lives that really are hindering us from experiencing who we are at our core, we have to remember to turn our gaze inward and remind ourselves that we belong to the universe. The creative force that is behind everything we see. And I know we say that a lot, but if we could actually grasp like a tenth of that, it would change everything. That we are much a part of this source as the sun, as the earth, as the air we breathe. If we pause to really think about that, and we can hear it, that inner voice shouting from a mountain, hello, this is who you are. Or like a light shining bright, like a spring that wells up within us. This is who we are. We are not this. We are this. Our soul, our essence, all those things that we talked about what the soul is. And I think the soul is all of those things and more. But when our soul and our essence is connected to this, our lives are the universal presence discovering itself, seeking greater and greater fulfillment. That there's a pattern of being that is as eternal as God or the universe or Earl or whatever you want to call it. That this pattern of being that is eternal, it is as indestructible as reality and as changeless as truth. It is the knower, it is the observer, it is the giver. Michelangelo is quoted as saying, "Every block of stone has a statue inside it, and it is the task of the sculptor to discover it. I saw the angel in the marble, and I carved it until he set him free." And that's our work. Our essence exists, that sculpture within us. And we only have to turn within, removing those things little by little, thoughts, patterns, old ways of believing, things of the past, fear and anxiety of the future, so that we can see more and more clearly and live more freely. Because those things just serve to block us from seeing who and what we are. And once we can see that, we can live more freely. And when we're able to remove these blocks, to really set an intention to focus on living from the inside out, it is then that Emerson's words that Jim spoke earlier will be able to permeate our being, soaking us in the awareness that the thing that we seek has already plopped down in a comfy chair and has made its home in us. In Emerson's words again, we live in succession, in division, in parts, in particles. Meantime, within man is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty, to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. And this deep power in which we exist and whose beatitude is all accessible to us is not only self-sufficing and perfect in every hour, but the act of seeing and the thing seen, the seer and the spectacle, the subject and the object are one. And so it is.
So it is.
So you take a moment and turn within that place that we've been talking about. Knowing that in that space, the whole universe resides. Knowing that that's kind of hard to imagine. But if we're quiet, and if we listen ever so closely, we can hear it. That hum of the universe. That song that tells us that we are home. That we are connected to this space. We're connected to this power and presence. That no matter what the external may be, that the internal remains birthless and changeless. So knowing this, I speak in this moment because that's what we have, this moment. Knowing that this presence has its home in us, expresses through us, lives as us. And knowing that there's a space within everyone that exudes His power and presence. And no matter how hard it may be able to see at times, we know that it's there. As close as our breath and as powerful as that which beats our heart. And so that we speak in this moment the only thing that is appropriate for this moment, and that is gratitude. Gratitude for each and every moment that we're able to get a closer and closer look at our true essence. And as we do this, we co-create with the universe. And so I speak this, knowing that it is done, knowing that it is true. And so it is.
So it is. Thank you, Ruth. Beautiful. Thank you, Cindy. Now is the time for, now is the time for our conscious giving. The Triangle Center for Spiritual Living is sustained by the giving of our time, talent, and treasure. This is the time every week when we offer financial support to assist this community to continue to be a beacon of light and love in the Greater Triangle area. Together we affirm that today's offering lifts this spiritual community, prospers the one giving, and contributes to the energy of sufficiency on the planet. Please repeat after me. I am grateful for all that I receive.
I am grateful for all that I receive.
And I am grateful for all that I may give. And so it is. So I'm grateful for all of these gifts, and on the screen right now should be the text to tithe number, and you can use that button, or you can also go onto our website at trianglecsl.org, and there, up in the right-hand corner there is a give button, and you can also click on that, and know that as you are doing so, I am very grateful for your generosity. Thank you. It is now my pleasure to welcome back the awesome Cindy Johnson.
So many things we can't control, so many hurts that happen every day, so many heartaches that pierce the soul, so many pain that won't go away. How do we make it better? How do we make it through? What can we do when there's nothing we can do? We can be kind, we can take care of each other, we can remember that deep down inside we all need the same thing. And maybe we'll find, if we are there for each other, that together we'll weather whatever tomorrow may bring. Nobody really wants to fight. Nobody really wants to go to war. Everyone wants to make it right. So why are we always fighting for? Does nobody want to see it? Does nobody understand the power to heal is right here in our hand. We can be kind, we can take care of each other. We can remember that deep down inside we all need the same thing. And maybe we'll find, if we are there for each other, that together we'll weather whatever tomorrow may bring. And it's not enough to talk about it, not enough to sing a song. We must walk the walk about it, you and I, do or die. We've got to try to get along. We can be kind, we can take care of each other. We can remember that deep down inside we all need the same thing. And maybe we'll find, if we are there for each other, that together we'll weather whatever tomorrow may bring. And maybe we'll find true peace of mind if we always remember we can be kind.
Indeed, Cindy, thank you. We can be kind to one another. So the science of mind is a very powerful teaching, and it teaches us how to use the principles of love and law to change things in our lives. And so one might come away thinking that we have to do all of this by ourselves. I want to invite you that if you've got something heavy on your heart, or you've got something to be grateful for and you just want to dance around and have someone witness it, or if you just like something to change in your life, reach out to one of the practitioners. We're here to love you through anything that you're going through, especially in these times. And we'll be there with you, and we'll hold the truth for you while you get there yourself. So if you'd like prayer, go to our website. That's trianglecsl.org. And on the homepage, there's a button, and you can click on that button, fill in the request form, and that prayer will go out to our ministers and our practitioners. So don't do it alone. That's my message to you. So let's do our May affirmation. So if you want to stand up, unless you're driving, we don't want to do that. So if you'd like to stand up in the comfort of your own home, please stand and do our May affirmation for the very first time. I will speak the words, and then you can speak them back. I am grounded in the power and presence of life itself.
I am grounded in the power and presence of life itself.
It is from that place that I move.
It is from that place that I move.
I practice my gift of freedom by listening to my higher self.
I practice my gift of freedom by listening to my higher self.
I completely trust the process.
I completely trust the process.
Today, I answer the call to discover, liberate, and express my divine genius.
Today I answer the call to discover, liberate, and express my divine genius.
I trust and allow the divine wisdom within me to guide my choices.
I trust and allow the divine wisdom within me to guide my choices.
I follow its lead.
I follow its lead.
My life is the life of the divine made manifest.
My life is the life of the divine made manifest.
Spirit works through me in wonderful ways.
Spirit works through me in wonderful ways.
My hands are the hands of God.
My hands are the hands of God.
I use them in service to the world.
I use them in service to the world.
And so it is.
And so it is.
So after I do our benediction, I'd like you to stay with us. We have a beautiful musical video to play for you. So please stick with us. And if you would just like to turn within, knowing that Spirit has been present this entire time, whether you're in your home or in your car or whether you're here with us, that Spirit is everywhere. And it is love. It is a loving presence. It is a river of peace that flows through our lives at all times. And I am grateful to know this. I'm grateful for this time that we've had together. I'm grateful for the message, the powerful message that we received today, the wonderful gift of music, and for all of the wonderful people sharing today in their comments and in their love for each other in this community. So I know as we go out, we receive everything that we need with ease and with grace, and that we support each other through these somewhat challenging times and turn them into wonderful things. And so it is.